Nadiya Hussain, it's amazing to meet you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the pool kitchen. I am loving your Nadiya's Kitchen book. I need to ask you, did you actually write it yourself?
I did. Yes, I did. It was one of those things when I wrote the book, it was all the recipes, the first thing I did was the recipes. The chapters and the recipes, and I thought, well, each of them need an introduction and each chapter needs an introduction, and the chapters were so kind of geared towards the way I cook and the way my family cook and the way we eat that, you know, writing was, for me, it was so easy just to kind of express how we cook and how we eat and how we live, and I'm hoping that when somebody reads that, they get that sense of the family. You know,
because I was sitting in bed reading it last night and it almost reads like an autobiography. There's so much lovely detail in there, like you wrestling with your kids and things like that. And I was reading it thinking, I really hope she's as nice as she comes across. But you do seem to be the real deal. It's a real pleasure to meet you.
And thank you very much.
So you're going to teach me to cook today, which I'm sure most people would be extremely jealous of. What are we going to make?
We are making cherry bakewell macaroons. Do you like baking?
I don't really bake.
At all?
No, my boyfriend's a bit more of a savoury person, and if there's a cake, I can't possibly eat the whole thing myself.
No. Well, this is, lucky for you, well, this is a really quick, easy, simple recipe, so I think you can, you'll manage, you'll be fine.
Do you actually bake every day?
I do bake every single day. There's always something happening. I mean, it's not just for kind of now, I do a lot of it for work and books and recipes and the column and stuff, but I do bake every day. It's like I get itchy fingers if I'm not in the kitchen. As soon as I finish my cooking, I'll be like, what can I bake? And so, yeah, there's always something.
And how come everyone in your family isn't as fat as a butterball?
They all run. So, like, I will do as much exercise as I can possibly fit in at the moment, but my husband will run 7.5 miles every day so he can eat cake.
How many pieces of cake does 7.5 miles get you?
He can eat a cake. I mean, he can easily polish off half a cake. Yeah.
That's impressive.
That's pretty impressive.
I have to ask you, actually, what's your take on the clean eating brigade? Because the ingredients that pop up again and again in this is butter, cream, sugar, flour. So what's your take on the whole sort of clean eating mob?
It's great for those who kind of like that kind of stuff, but for me, I've got 3 children, and the one thing I don't want is for my children to grow up with an unhealthy attitude towards food. I think to be able to cook and eat normally and have that attitude that you don't have to eat everything in big portions, and they exercise, that's what's important for me. As long as they can eat whatever they want, but know that there's a balance and know that they can exercise at the same time, that's what's important to me. So I won't be juicing anytime soon.
Macaroons, I think of macaroons, I think of those lovely green L'Oreal kind of £5 a pop.
The little
French ones.
So they're macarons.
They look very
they're macarons.
Okay, sorry, there's a difference.
I think they're macarons. Macaroons are your big coconut kind of mounds of meringue. So yeah, I think they're 2 very different things.
I'm looking here and I can't see anywhere anything that's going to help me beat that egg white. Does that mean I have to do it by hand?
No, we've got an electric whisk back there, because even I'm not doing it by hand. No, I can't do it by hand.
Yeah, because it's Ramadan, you must be exhausted. You're not eating or drinking anything.
You know, I think lots of people think that it's really tough, but actually when I'm fasting, when I've had the kids at home, I still have to cook and get on with normal things, and I get to come away from the house now, so it's a little bit easier actually. I think it's a little bit easier this year. But when you're at home, you have to do all the kind of day-to-day things, and you still have to cook and feed your children. So
don't you feel when it's Ramadan? Don't you feel like just having a little cheat, putting your finger in and a taste, or can you really not put anything past your mouth?
No, you really can't. And luckily, I'm not the kind of person who tastes every time I cook, but I am a grazer, so that's the bit that I've struggled with. So if I was stood here, I'd have had a cherry by now and had some coconut, and I like to graze, so I have to really stop myself from doing that.
Okay, well, I'm impressed that you can be a professional chef whilst not eating a thing for 30 days. Okay, where do we start?
Right.
Wondered what stiff peaks are. Is that a stiff peak?
When the peak shouldn't drop. Well,
okay, that's not stiff enough.
No, that needs to go a little bit further.
Not twin peaks, stiff peaks.
Right. This is our almond extract.
So the almond is what makes it into the Bakewell type flavour. I think that's got to be.
You turn it off, and then
it's still flopping.
Yeah,
is it going to be all right?
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Do you do this? Like where you lift the thing out?
Yeah, and then clean the beaters.
Yeah.
My teacher taught me that. Yep. Let's just.
And this is the bit where I would lick the blender.
Yeah. That's where my
and
kids
like Dumb
would be
and Dumber,
yeah.
switch it on at the same time.
This is the bit I should really hold it over your head, shouldn't I?
Yeah, come on then. I dare you.
Woo!
I think it's okay.
It's okay. It should.
Yeah.
That's you know you've got it when it doesn't turn into mousse for somebody's hair. Otherwise, you'd just be Paul Hollywood and spiky hair. Yeah.
Am I folding this in now?
Yes.
Let's get folding the right word.
Well, no, because I think the whole point of the meringue is that you, because you've made it and it's so stiff and it's stabilised. Now that's a really good carrier for the coconut.
Okay.
You know, you've done all that work, but you've stabilised it, so it's not going to go wrong. You've kind of that's your corn flour and your cream of tartar. That's your insurance. You're all right. So yeah.
So when we were whizzing that up, I was asking you if this was anybody else's recipe that you had always worked with. Should I do it gradually?
No, just get it all in there.
And So this recipe, is it one that you took from someone else or developed yourself?
I can't even remember where I have the recipe from, but it's I just love that cherry bakewell flavour. So like with most recipes that I have, I always like to change them around. And
so the cherry bakewell twist is yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you were learning to cook as a child, did you ever, with your parents, cook kind of old school British bakery baked goods, or was it more?
No. Well, I grew up in a house with really kind of accomplished. My dad was a chef and he owned restaurants, and my mum is a home cook.
Yeah.
And we were always the sous chefs. We were never allowed to really get in the kitchen and cook. It was only after I got married that I really was allowed to go in the kitchen and kind of do whatever I wanted.
So what kind of sweet things were you eating at home when you were a kid? And then what did you learn to cook at school that perhaps was different?
Well, baking as a concept or dessert as a concept doesn't exist in Bangladeshi cuisine at all. No. So we never grew up with having something sweet after dinner. It was always you have something sweet before dinner. So you'd have like fruit before you have your dinner. And that was a way of not eating a lot of food in Bangladesh because there isn't a lot.
Yeah.
When you've got big families, you don't have a lot of food. So that was a way of not eating too much. So you fill up on fruit and then you eat as little dinner as possible.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what we always did. But so baking and sweets after dinner wasn't a concept that I was familiar with, not until I got to school.
So there were no puddings at home, but then you got to school, and when did you start cooking at school?
Well, I noticed at school that we were having school dinners and we always had pudding when we were at school.
And did you like it?
Loved it. And I would go home and complain to my mum and say, well, how come we don't have it? And she's like, she obviously thought school was just corrupting us. We had an oven because it came with the cooker, but she used her oven for storage. She never even knew that you could, it was an element that you could heat. She didn't even understand that. She didn't get that. So she didn't really ever, she never knew what it was.
Can you remember the first kind of baked good that you made and brought home
Scones.
as a kid? Scones.
They still do that. My nephew, who is 12, who's in year 8, he came home with scones, and that's a classic. I mean, it's you can tell that that's kind of lasted, and it's kind of the test of time. You know, I did scones 16 years ago in school, and he's doing it now.
You were just telling me that you did very well in your GCSEs, and you got a cookery book as a prize.
Yeah. I still have that cookery book, and that's got all the classics in it. So Swiss roll and fruitcake, Madeira, all of the kind of classics, and they're my go-to recipes. So we are making 6 big dollops onto this rice paper.
Got it. You know, you say you did really well in your O-levels. You went on to do A-levels.
Yes.
And yet you didn't go on to university. So tell me a little bit about that, because some people might find that a bit weird.
I got into university, but I was the first girl in our family to get that far. And naturally, it was scary for my parents. They were afraid, you know.
What do you think they were afraid of?
Well, I was the first daughter to ever, not just in my family, in the entire kind of extended family, the first person to leave home. So they were afraid of, you know, the big wide world. And, you know, to think they're immigrants and they came to this country, you know, the first of, and, you know, and they kind of struggled to integrate, and, you know, they had to, and it was a big thing for them, you know, and I get that now.
Yeah.
And it was a simple no, you're not going to university.
But
yeah.
I mean, you did quite a revealing interview recently, and you went, but none of your sisters went to university either, and you're obviously all like smart as anything.
Yeah, I mean, none of my other sisters wanted to go to university.
Oh, they didn't?
No,
Right.
I was the only one who actually wanted to go and made it in. And, you know, and that was a big blow for my parents. They were like, well, I don't understand why you need to go to university, because it wasn't a concept that they were familiar with. So it was, and for me, I was this kind of young 18-year-old who was like, I had the world at my feet. You know, I wanted to do everything.
Yeah.
And then they said no. And it was like, okay, well, you know, for me, I kind of knew it was coming, because that's kind of the...
You expected them to say no.
Yeah, because that's the kind of culture that I've been raised in. And then anything new is, I think, almost seen as a threat.
Yeah.
So I think as soon as I said I'm going to university, I think they might have heard I'm moving out and I'll never see you again and I'm off, and, you know, and I think that scared them.
Having spoken about that publicly now, what's the conversation like with your parents? Have they ever said, well, we're sorry we didn't send you, we were afraid, or don't be so rude, putting it out there?
No,
you know?
my mum said, well, thank God you didn't go to university, otherwise you'd never have done Bake Off. So we can make about 6 out of these.
Yeah, sorry, I'm being pretty rubbish, aren't I?
No, it's fine.
I've used up with space all wrong.
Fine.
Are they meant to have a little hole in the middle?
Yeah.
I might just anticipate. These are going to be really big macaroons.
Yeah. Because they're so delicate, they need to be on rice paper.
You know what they remind me of? They remind me of these disgusting packet things we used to eat when we were kids called snowballs. Do you remember them?
I think they
might
still
be
sell them.
Possibly, but they're very 70s.
Oh.
And they were basically huge lumps of sort of marshmallowy
I promise
white
you,
blobs
these
with chocolate.
These are nicer.
We've got an extra one. I've got it wrong.
That's fine. I'd go bigger.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't run 7.5 miles like your husband every day.
No.
I don't know if I'm entitled to eat quite so much.
I mean, it's just, then everybody can have one each. They can't come back for a second. If they do, they just look greedy. So just one each. Perfect. They should make a good 6.
Who's the most interesting person you've cooked with since the end of Bake Off? Since your rise to super stellar...
Obviously, I'm going to say you.
Queen bakers. No, you mustn't say that. That just sounds really insincere.
Who have I cooked with? I can't even remember. My memory fails me completely. I haven't cooked with anyone.
Cooked for?
Oh, of course, the Queen.
That's a stupid question.
Yeah,
isn't it?
of course, the Queen. She, so I did her 90th birthday cake, which was, I didn't realise, I mean, you hear the word, oh, you bake a cake for the Queen, and I remember thinking it was a sick joke, thinking this isn't right.
Yeah.
And I was in the midst of doing other things, and then it only dawned on me when I was stood there with a cake in front of the Queen, and I was completely starstruck. I didn't think I was going to be, but I was completely starstruck. And it was 12:30 in the afternoon, and I said, "Good morning, Your Majesty. No happy birthday, Your Highness." So completely, and I just bowed.
Did you curtsy?
I tried, and then it was a major flop. My foot did something wrong, and then I kind of went like this, and I just kind of thought, right, I've messed that up completely.
Did you get good vibes from her? Did she feel like a good person, or did she feel very sort of regal and removed?
Well, when I went there, I thought there were these rules that you have to, you can't talk to her a certain way, you can't touch her unless she touches you. I heard about as soon as it was announced, everyone said, oh, you've got to be careful, you mustn't do this and you mustn't do that.
Yeah.
And I turned up on the day and I said, please tell me the rules. And they said, there are no rules, you can do whatever you like. Her people said, she's really relaxed, do whatever you like. And I said, well, I can't cope with that because I want rules. I want you to tell me that I can't do this and I can't do that. And I said, so is it okay for me to high-five her then? And they said, no, obviously you can't high-five her. And I said,
so there are rules.
Yeah, so there are rules, you need to tell me that. And I was like, I'm going to totally high-five the Queen.
And I hear that she took one tier home.
Yeah.
Do you think she had a piece of that tier? Do you like to think she did? Or
What
do you reckon?
I'd like to think that she sat down with her slippers on with Coronation Street.
Her
Tupperware.
Tupperware.
The cake.
She's big into her Tupperware, isn't she?
Yeah, I just sliced the cake and Coronation Street.
Yeah.
Right, so we are going to put a cherry on top of each one.
Just enjoying licking the bowl there. I think I can manage this bit. So, do you think, had you done MasterChef, the other cult sort of food telly, do you think you could have won that? Or do you think it was the fact that it was the Bake Off that really
cooking something,
played to your
I
strengths?
think cooking is something that I've done my whole life. I've been cooking since I was 10.
Cooking everything, savoury, sweet, whatever.
Yeah. No, just savoury. And it was only, I've only been baking for 9 or 10 years. So that was something that I felt like cooking was so instinctive. It's like, it's instinctive, whereas baking is it's a lot of chemistry and science and knowing techniques, learning techniques. And I really enjoyed that whole learning process. And I enjoy baking very differently to cooking.
But what you're saying is that your ability, you probably have got the ability to nail MasterChef as well as the Great British Bake Off.
Maybe. So we're going to get these in the oven. And if you've got a fan oven, it's 170. And if it's a conventional oven, then it's 150 or gas mark 2. And then on the middle shelf for 20 minutes.
While I was whipping those egg whites so expertly, we added what?
We added corn flour, just a little bit of salt and some cream of tartar. And
some almond.
And some almond
delicious
extract.
Almond extract, yeah.
Obviously, that's just for the Bakewell kind of element. But the salt, I've always put salt in meringues, and I don't really know why.
Yeah, I put salt in everything.
Yeah. So you just,
savoury things, sweet things.
Yeah, I've always put a pinch of salt in meringues. I think that's just the way I was taught when I did it at school. But at school, we used to add corn flour, but I learned that you can add cream, and I used to add corn flour to stabilise the egg whites. Yeah. But since sort of baking more as I got older, I realised that a lot of recipes had cream of tartar, again, to stabilise. Yeah. Now, what I do now is I add both. I add corn flour and cream of tartar.
Because you were just talking about how you like the science of baking, about how it needs to be precise and whatnot. You know, are you going to be writing more technical, detailed books about baking, or are you going to keep it sort of bouncy and jolly, Nadiya's Kitchen style? Because there's some really sciencey books out there about cooking.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes those kind of really sciencey books can be slightly daunting, because I still kind of look at myself as somebody who, like, I'm an amateur baker, you know.
No, but you're obviously quite clever.
Yeah, I like the kind of science element of baking, but I think sometimes when it gets too heavy on the science, I think it alienates people slightly, and people are not always that confident. Yeah. You know, if I handed a recipe that, you know, made my sister's sous vide things, or you know, you know, like if I said, here you go, sous vide that, you know, they would be like,
what is a sous vide again?
Exactly.
Boil in the bag, I always think.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But, you know, it's sometimes when you use technical terms, and I think it almost alienates people. So I think there are so many technical things happening in that book, but really, does everybody really need to know about all the technicalities?
They just need it to work.
They just need it to work, and I think they work. So that's really important.
Yeah. You've talked in the past about your husband saying that he wanted you, that he felt like you were a caged bird, or what was the expression you used?
Clipped.
Clipped your wing.
My feathers were clipped.
Yeah. He felt like your wings were clipped.
Yeah.
In those years when you were 10 years stay-at-home mum, is that right? Did you feel kind of frustrated, bored, kind of want to work, and how did you use up your kind of intellectual energy, if you like?
I chose to stay at home with the kids because he had done a degree, he'd just come out of university, got a really good job, and, you know, he had potential to really kind of be good at what he wanted to be good at. And he's in IT, so I was like, just for me that's boring. But anyway, that's, you know, that he was really good at it. He's really good at it, and that's what he wanted to do. And it made sense for him to be, we were very practical. It was like, actually, it makes sense for you to go out and work and kind of further yourself in your career. If I go out and work, I haven't got a degree at this point, I'm kind of nervous about what kind of work I'd get. So I thought, if I go out to work, I'll only leave the kids with childcare to make money to pay for childcare, only to not spend any time with them. Which
is something I think a lot of mothers can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever kind of cultural background they're from. I mean, you talk about the fact that you're happy to talk about this thing and sort of be almost a sort of spokesperson for a certain section of British society. That's quite a lot of weight on the shoulders of someone who set out to bake some cakes. Do you ever feel like, oh, hold on, this is too much, it's just too big a thing to take on, or you just, how are you coping?
It wasn't expected. I mean, I didn't expect all of that to come out of it, but I think it was just a baking show, and that's what I look at the scale of it. I went on a baking show to bake a few cakes just so I could get my confidence back.
Amazing cakes,
Thank
I should
you.
say. Yeah.
Just to get my confidence,
Yeah.
and so much more has come out of it, and that is, I think that's a win-win situation. You know, to come out of something that I was just going in to bake a few cakes, to come out the other end and people to say, actually, you know, the things that, you know, that I've done for race relations, you know, and I just, yeah, that's an incredible achievement. I just think if I can just do me, if I can just be me and just continue to do whatever it is I'm doing, and then just hopefully, for me, I think it's an achievement if I can just get one person to say, you know what, I've got my confidence back because if she can do it. It was a wreck at the beginning, you know.
But do you ever think that kind of people like me going, oh, arranged marriages or, you know, why do you have to wear a headscarf and all this sort of thing? Do you ever sort of think, oh, these ignorant people, they're meant to be our neighbours and yet they know nothing about us, or they have all these sort of slightly out of touch understanding of who we are as people?
I think being British, people are overly polite sometimes. I'm like overly polite. I was out in Bangladesh and I was queuing. There was no such thing as queuing in Bangladesh. And I was like, why isn't everybody queuing? It didn't make sense to me. It's just that whole kind of, I think there's this element of Britishness about us that you mustn't ask because it's rude. But actually, I think asking means educating yourself. Asking means understanding. And, you know, that's kind of what I encourage my children to do. I say, if there's something you don't understand, you must ask. You have to ask, even if you think it's, you know, some people will take offense to some questions, but, you know, if it means learning, then you should ask, because, you know, I could have neighbours who I've had for years who would never have, you know, understood unless they'd asked, and when they did, they were grateful for it.
What do you mean?
Well, I had a neighbour who was 90 years old, and he'd lived on that same street for, I think he might have moved into that house when he was 10 or 11, so nearly 80 years he lived in that house, and he saw how the street changed over his years, and we were the first family of colour to move into that street, and he used a very specific P word when he met us, and then one day my husband went over, and he couldn't get out of the house because his house was the driveway was covered in snow, so he shoveled our snow, and then he went over to this neighbour's house opposite us, and then he shoveled his snow, and he knocked on the door and he said, look, I've just done that and I'm just going to go salt it, so you can walk out now if you want to go up to it.
Your husband did it unprompted? Yeah,
he just went and did it and said, look, just so you know, I've just done that.
Good Samaritan stuff.
Well, it was just, he saw he couldn't get out, so he salted. He said, look, I'm salting it now, I've just moved all the snow away, so you can get out, and when it gathers again, I'll come back and do it. And that was it. You know, sometimes you don't have to say anything, sometimes you just do things because you're a person and you're a neighbour, and he changed his opinion straight away. He said,
of course he did.
Yeah, he didn't dare to come anywhere near us, like he wouldn't interact with us, but that was it. From that point on, he gave us Christmas presents, he gave us Easter presents, he gave my children his vintage toy car before he died. So, you know, that for me that's just one person's perception. To change one person's perception is important.
How do you find time to cook for your family now when you're working so much? Do you find yourself working till late into the night, or? Yeah. I mean, it is literally I found myself I'm just like on caffeine and chocolate most of the time. Oh my God.
Yeah, which is not a bad thing, but it just means a lot more forward planning, forward thinking. So when I'm cooking, I'll cook in big batches and put bits away, and then I have to instruct, because my husband doesn't cook. His idea of cooking is making a pot noodle and adding coriander to it.
Okay, well, that's quite imaginative. It's better than not adding the coriander.
Yeah, well, it's still a pot noodle with coriander. Anyway, it's not cooking. So he doesn't cook. So I will have to kind of I have to really, really plan ahead and make sure that everything's in place. And, you know, I'll cook bits and bobs beforehand and kind of give him, if I'm out before he's awake, it'll be a little post-it note on the fridge saying, this is what's for dinner and this is what I'll come home and make. And so, yeah, it's a lot of kind of post-it notes, lots of post-it notes.
I'm presuming there's no packet food in your house,
Nope.
as in ready meals or anything like that?
I've never eaten a ready meal before.
What tips could you give someone who claims they don't have enough time to cook from scratch at home?
I think sometimes when people say they don't have the time, they only need to see how it's really hard because if you're not a natural cook, I can imagine that it would be really hard to suddenly say, oh, I'm going to go in the kitchen, I can whip something up.
Yeah.
Because like I was saying, cooking's quite instinctive, and you either have that instinct, or sometimes it's really hard to build that instinct up.
You don't think it can be learned?
No, but I think it can be learned. I'd like to say it can be learned. I've been trying on my husband for the last 11 years and it's not been working. But
Right.
he just says, well, you're a good cook, and I just can't match up to that. So, and I think sometimes people think cooking is all about hundreds of ingredients and hundreds of processes. It really isn't. You know, last night I had some smoked salmon, and so big chunks of smoked salmon, and I just made a sauce out of garlic, chopped tomatoes, and smoked salmon, and that was it. And then tossed that with some pasta and some watercress. Kids were happy.
Yeah.
And that's 4 or 5 ingredients.
Exactly.
That's really easy. So I think sometimes people need to get out of their head that it's complicated or complex. It's a complex way of cooking. Isn't complex. It can be really easy.
Yeah.
Just 2 or 3 staple ingredients.
I mean, looking through this book and reading all the lovely details about wrestling with your kids and whatnot, your life just sounds incredible, like full of so much sort of fun and laughter. I loved it when you won Bake Off and your kids are bouncing around with joy, like they're kind of spring-loaded. Like, you know, is your life as great as it looks, or is some of it perhaps for the camera?
It is as amazing as it sounds when it's on paper. You know, you don't realise how amazing your life is till you're asked to write about it. And then you write about it and think, my goodness, I have a good life. I have good, you know, like I've got amazing children. And, you know, that joy when I won, I remember sort of looking back and you miss bits, because when you're in the moment, you don't see everything. And then when you watch it back, and you see bits that you didn't realise you'd missed. And my 9-year-old was rubbing his eyes under his glasses because he was so happy.
Yeah.
You know, he was crying out of happiness. I've not seen him cry out of happiness. I don't think I've ever seen him do that. So, you know, that'll stay with him forever, you know.
And we sort of talked about, you know, you come from a sort of conservative British Asian family, yet your parents look kind of quite pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, they
Your
are.
dad was also jumping around like he was on springs.
He's like the tiniest person in the world, but he was the most proud. He was so proud, and you know and his line is now, I made her.
Yeah.
You know, if we go anywhere, he's like, I made this. This is mine, and that's his claim to fame. That's like, she's mine, and that I made this. So he's really proud.
So where do you go with this? Because you were just telling me that your book is all your own work. I mean, there was no team of people writing the recipes or choosing the photographers.
No.
Tell me how the book came to happen.
I mean, when we got together with the team to write the book, it was literally, what would you like to write? And that was, I kid you not, that was, there you go, you can write a book. And there was no, you need to do this, you need to do that. There were no guidelines. So I was kind of like, oh, I don't know how to write a cookbook. But luckily, being on Bake Off, you do learn how to write recipes. So I thought, right, I can do this. And I had a wealth of about 60, 70 recipes at home anyway that I'd been just kind of collecting. So it was a thought process as to how I wanted the book to be shaped. And then, you know, with that came the recipes, and then sort of photography and things like that. And it wasn't a case of this is your photographer, it was a case of who would you like. And, you know, so it was all a very organic process. So I was able to kind of decide for myself what I wanted.
And what do you see in the future? Is it a sort of a baking range and more books, a TV show, or what do you see in the future?
I think after doing Bake Off, I didn't imagine that I'd do any of this. So the book was, I'd never expected to do a book or any of that. So to actually physically have that here with me, and that I've done that, and that's my hard work, you know, I never imagined I'd do it. There was no expectation. But now it's like, I don't have a plan. I think when I have a plan, I never had a plan for all of this, and it happened. So I'm kind of winging it a little bit.
Yeah, nice.
A little bit of winging it. I'm winging it a little bit. I don't have a plan. But the difference now is that I dare to dream, and I think that I can do whatever I want. And
when you dare to dream, do you see roles other than cooking? Do you see public speaking roles and actually, you know, being a mouthpiece for your, this sounds really silly, but, you know, being a mouthpiece for your community,
I think
almost political, I suppose.
I definitely don't see myself as a politician.
No.
I speak,
I don't see you as a politician.
No, I don't. I can't. I'm not a politician. I'm certainly not into politics. I'm a person, and first and foremost, I'm a mum. And I think when I speak as a mum, I speak most honestly and most kind of I feel like everything I say as a mum, it's most heartfelt. And I think that's why that's why when I watch it back, I feel like I was myself, and I feel like
Bake Off.
Yeah, I feel like I was myself, and I think that's why when I watch it back, my husband says you were yourself, and I can see why people like you. And I never got it then, but I get it now. I can only be myself, and that's what I will continue to do, is just be myself. And you know, when there's a sell-by date, and when that's over, it's over. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy everything I do.
There's quite a few people who've been out there for. Delia Smith did all right for about 50 years.
She did. I hope I have that much longevity, because I love what I do. I'm really enjoying myself, and I kind of live every day as if this might not be here tomorrow morning, and that's why I enjoy everything. Every day that I do, I enjoy. I think I'll have to stop you there. They're looking really golden, so I think it's time to get them out.
Shall I see if I can manage it?
You can do?
Normally all I hold is a pencil. Oh yeah.
Can you smell the coconut?
Well, tasty. A toasted coconut is totally different from fresh coconut, isn't it?
Nice.
Oh, they've gone kind of
that's what
fluffy.
you want.
Fluffy. There's a bit of air in them.
They kind of fluff up, and then you just kind of a light.
I hope we're not going to melt this surface.
And they're kind of a light golden, and then you just kind of leave them there just to kind of cool down slightly.
Oh, they smell delicious. The minute baking comes out the oven, you just want to stick your finger in it, don't you?
Oh, I know. I love that. You know, that smell of anything baked.
And you're on Ramadan. How are you coping with the smell?
It's fine. I think because when I'm at home with the children, even if I wasn't doing this, I'd still be cooking and kind of cooking for them and feeding them. So it's it doesn't affect me. It's just the water that's quite hard.
Yeah.
It's just the not drinking water. So don't drink in front of me.
No, I have been kind of quietly drinking away.
No, you can drink in front of me. It's absolutely fine.
There's an amazing bit in the book where you describe dancing around the kitchen. I've got to know what you dance to. I want it chapter and verse. The cheesy stuff, the good stuff, the stuff we may have never heard of.
I have to say, I do like a bit of Taylor Swift. She does get me dancing. So that's usually, or Disney songs. Yeah, I like a few Disney songs. And so me and my daughter have a few. My boys think I'm totally embarrassing. They're like, God, she's dancing in the kitchen again. So it's usually me just kind of, and my daughter will she will dance with me. And that's what we'll do. It's like when we're waiting for a timer to go off and we've got 2 minutes, let's just do the timer dance. And so we do a 2-minute timer dance.
Come on, give me a little tiny bit of this timer dance.
Oh no,
please.
It literally is just flapping I can't dance to save my life, hence why it's in the book and not a visual. So I won't be doing Strictly anytime soon.
Okay, so if we're going to put the chocolate on, then we need to melt it.
So let's melt that chocolate.
Yeah.
If I'm not tempering or it's just for decoration, I would just go straight in the microwave. But what is this gadget? This is a...
I don't know.
So we just melt it in there. Do you put the lid on? Do you put the lid on?
Can I manage something as complicated as that?
We have to drizzle our chocolate on. Let me
Should we do a competition where you do half and I do half?
All right, fine.
We'll see. It'll be like a generation game. We can see if I can come up.
How do you want to drizzle? Spoon?
What?
Do you want to use a spoon to drizzle, or are you going to use this?
Is there a special way to drizzle?
I'll let you. Well, I'm not letting you win.
I'm
I'm
not
going to let you win.
And I'll copy.
I'm not going to let you win.
Hang on a minute. You won Great British Bake Off. I've got to win something. Have you stayed in touch with anyone from the TV show?
Yeah, we've got a group chat that we chat on every now and again. It does lay dormant for a long time because everybody's very busy, but I'm going to do a really chefy drizzle. But yeah, no, we do talk to each other every now and again. Who
is your absolutely sort of best friend?
Probably, I think of all the contestants, probably Sandy. I'll ring her every now and again and kind of have a chat with her, and she's got a lovely dog as well.
Did you ever feel like there was any kind of sort of tokenism involved in your selection? Did you feel like there was almost sort of a cynical choice, or did you trust the producer's motives?
I feel like, that when you walk in and you sort of see you're the only one of your kind and you think, oh God, why am I here? And then you look at them and they've got a wealth of kind of knowledge and generations of baking knowledge, and I'm the only one there. I'm thinking, God. And I had to kind of tell myself, no, I'm here because they wanted me here. And why they wanted me there, I never questioned that.
Right.
And I think I quite liked the fact that I was naive to everything. It was just, I like to think that they let me on that show because I was on Bake Off because they wanted me on Bake Off, and that I proved that I can bake, because you don't get on for your personality, you get on because you have to be able to bake.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Everybody on Bake Off seems to have a pretty big personality.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
No, they're not.
I'm not an expert, I have to admit, but...
It's your turn.
Yes, it's my turn. Okay.
And then we're going to crush some almonds on. I'd like to think that I got on because of my pure baking prowess.
Well, however, for whatever reason you got on, it's worked out well. Okay, this isn't as easy as it looks.
It really is. And then we'll just, see, that looks really good. That's better than mine.
No, I've obscured the cherry.
Cherry's hidden.
It's the worst crime, obscuring the cherry. If you're going to make something when you come in from work, what's your absolutely fail-safe 2-second stopper for all those people who say that they haven't got time to cook?
I quite like doing kind of pastas. When you've got children, pasta is it's such a safe thing to do, and I always have the ingredients for a pesto at home.
Yeah.
And to be fair, my nearly 10-year-old is really, really good in the kitchen. So if I leave out the ingredients for a pesto, he will put them all in, whiz it up, and boil the pasta and feed his brother and sister and his dad.
What, so if you're out?
Yeah, if I'm out...
You train him well.
If I'm out, then I will leave the ingredients out for him, and then I'll leave a little post-it note saying, just make the pesto, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He'll make the pesto and boil the pasta, and he can just, so I very rarely have to come home to cook dinner for them. It's usually cooked for me. You
went to an all-girls school that was predominantly Muslim girls?
Yeah.
Yeah? What kind of schools do your kids go to? Is it...
It's definitely a different mix to the kind of school that I went to. They've got a massive mixture of people in their school, so which is great, because that's kind of exactly what I wanted for them, is to kind of mingle in what is real society.
Right. Do you see a different? Do you think school is a different experience?
I think the struggles are very different now.
Tell me a bit about that.
I think the struggles are different. I think children have to face a lot more there's so many more things as a parent that I worry about my children, as they get older. I mean, mine are still at primary school, but it's when they get to high school, things, like gangs and crime and things like that. You worry about that kind of stuff. And I just kind of hope that as a parent, I'm making the right decisions, by sending them to the right schools and, safeguarding them so that they're, I always say that I was kind of raised with hundreds of hurdles, and I'd like to think that as I raise them, I knock down at least 90% of those. There'll be some hurdles that they will have to knock down themselves, but I'd like to think that as I'm running, I knock down those hurdles so they don't have any.
What were those hurdles?
Well, lots of things. I think lots of things that come with being a part of a Bengali society, part of Muslim society, part of British society. All of those things come with their own kind of...
Give me an example. I'm trying to,
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Just being a girl in a Bangladeshi society, it's harder. You've got a lot more your choices are slightly more limited, because women are seen as they will get married and go off to their husband, whereas the men will be the earners, and they're the ones who will carry the family name. So there's a lot more pressure on the men, and the women are almost seen as, well, you'll just get married late teens and that'll be it. So there's that kind of pressure, and kind of trying to fight that.
But you do think that that's a fight, effectively?
Of course it is. Yeah.
But, to be fair, that's pretty much how women were viewed in British culture not that long ago.
Yeah.
So, is it something that you need to fight, or is there a culture there that you want to protect and that is worth, sort of valuing, or do you think we're all fighting the same battles as women when it comes to...
I think secretly, as women, we're all fighting the same battle, but in very different ways, and it looks more severe from different cultures and less so in others. It's more covered in other cultures. I just think that I think we're all fighting our own battles. But for me, as a mum, I I'll always kind of fight that battle as a mother, that I don't want my kids to have those hurt. I don't want there to be those boundaries on my children. I want them to, for me, as long as they're happy and, their happiness, that's it. As long as they're happy, for me, that's the most important thing.
But I mean, you're talking about the pressure on you to do the right thing as a mother. But actually, do we live in a society, in a country that is able to give your children the best chances in life? I mean, are we as British people open enough to real cultural?
Of course we are, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. I could be anywhere in the world, but I'm here and I've chosen to stay here. And I think Britain and the society that we live in, I think sometimes it's so negative that we don't see the positive.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we concentrate so heavily on the negative parts of society that we forget that actually we live in a really nice society. We live in a very tolerant society. Yes, there's the minority, but why do we give them the airtime?
Yeah.
Why are we giving them the airtime? Because they are the minority. So, yes, we live in a society where we are accepted and that we are a part of something much bigger than just us. And it's just, for me, I just want to raise my children so they don't have a chip on their shoulder. They need to go into this society knowing that they are a part of it and they are accepted.
Yeah. I mean, that was certainly the kind of the run-on from the Great British Bake Off was just this incredibly happy product of a British Britain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Great Britain rather than a broken Britain.
Yeah, I think when I did my final bake, I remember sort of all my bakes were about my family and they always kind of had some sort of a link to somebody I loved. And I remember when we were given the brief to do the final cake for the showstopper for the final. I thought, right, what am I going to do? And I said, this is my last chance to bake, and it's got to mean something to me, because I felt like every time it meant something to me, I worked extra hard, and there had to be a story, there had to be something that I could relate to. And so I did my big fat British wedding cake, because I never had a wedding cake when I got married, because I got married out in Bangladesh, and they just don't do cakes out there. So I thought, right, I want a wedding cake, and who better to make it than me? And I did my husband's favourite flavour, so it was lemon drizzle, and it had to be a classic British flavour. And I thought, right, lemon drizzle. And then I got an opportunity to make my marshmallow fondant, and then I used my sari, red, white and blue sari.
Was it actually your sari that you put on the cake?
It was a sari that I had at home, and
Yeah.
it was red, white and blue. And then so I chopped it up, and then I kind of trimmed the base of the cake with this red, white and blue sari. And then I had some jewels from my wedding that I put on the cake.
Because I've seen the pictures of the cake. Are they actual real jewels?
It's just costume jewellery.
Oh, yeah.
But I put them on the cake.
Your crown jewels?
Yes.
Because, I look at your husband's Twitter feed and just see him enjoying, revelling in your success. Does he miss having you at home and being old Nadiya, or is he truly loving it as much as he's
I think I'm always old Nadiya at home. I'm still the same person. I think the difference now is he sees the confidence that I've got, the confidence that I had when we got married. I think he sees that same person. And he always says,
What do you mean by that? The confidence you had when you got married, he sees that same person? What?
Like when we first got married, I was this confident, worked 2 jobs, bought a house, I was confident. And then as soon as I had my kids, it was like I did this whole lioness thing where protect, you have a child and your whole world is about protecting them. And that's what I did. It was like at the cost of myself, I would protect my children, and I would still do that. At the cost of myself, I will always protect my kids, and that's what I did though. But what happened was I lost myself in the process.
Yeah.
You lose your confidence. I'm like, I'll brush my hair tomorrow, it'll be fine. And then I don't need to wear high heels, it'll be fine. Like walking out with sick and saying, it'll be fine, don't worry, it's just sick, I've got babies, it's fine.
I think most women can relate to that.
Yeah, I think there are lots of women
Even
who
ones
can relate.
without children.
Yeah. But you think that you think, oh, that's fine, I've got children. But you do lose a little bit of yourself, and with that you lose a little bit of your confidence. And I remember after Bake Off, he just said, through the weeks, he said, come sort of week 7, he goes, I just felt like you were the same person.
So he got you on British Bake Off to get back old Nadiya, the kind of the confident, bubbly girl he married.
Yeah. Well,
So that's what you were like when you married?
Yeah. And he said, wouldn't you love the kids to meet the you before you had them?
Yeah. Oh,
That's what he always says. He says, wouldn't you love the kids to meet the you before you had them? Because sometimes I was so stressed about getting everything perfect with them that I was winding myself up and then just kind of exploding. So it was just, he was like, they would love to meet the you before you had them. And
so you're saying you were kind of channeling all your emotional and mental energy into being a perfect mum.
Yeah.
At the cost of not being you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I can definitely tell which ones mine are.
I like yours because they've got more chocolate in them.
No, I think they look like slightly exploded eyeballs. Yours look best.
Fine, I'll have that.
That one's not.
That's
that
nice.
one's
I like
not
them.
too bad.
No,
yeah.
I think
These
they look
are
great.
A bit 4-year-old.
I think who cares as long as they taste good.
Yeah,
right.
I would
it's all about
really,
the taste.
Really love to try one. Can I try one?
Is it not? We should really leave them to cool because can you see how delicate they are? Look.
During Ramadan, do you ever forget it's Ramadan and just pop a bit in your mouth?
I have done.
And
Yeah.
then do you have to do special prayers or something?
Repent.
Do you have that? What you have to do?
No. Dear God, please help me. I ate. No. There are times when I've, when you're at the sink and you're kind of tidying up. Oh, I need a glass of water. Just getting a glass of water, and I'll just go for it. And then I did that yesterday, and my son said, "Oh my God, Mum, you're fasting!" And I was like, "Oh, I am." And he goes, "I can't believe you did that. I'm not even 10 yet, and I don't do it." And I was like, "All right, you're showing off now."
Because obviously, growing up in a Christian culture, we do have Lent.
Yeah.
Where I think originally you would fast, and then at least you would give something up.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, the giving us something up thing was actually really an important, good thing. Mm. But the older I've got, the less and less I kind of care. I'm like, oh, well, it's only Lent. So we've lost that sort of connection with those sort of disciplines in Christianity. I think that Muslims have sort of stuck to a lot more. I don't know why that is.
I think it's a lot about rules. I think they are quite adamant about the rules in Islam. But I think we kind of teach our children the kind of rules and ways to pray and things like that. But what we as kind of more modern Muslims maybe of this generation is the we're teaching our children the spirituality of being a part of a religion, about the kind of the moral aspects and, just the spirituality. And that's really important because, yes, you can fast and, yes, there are rules, but why are you fasting? And it was important for me because my nearly 10-year-old is fasting. And I said, why do you want to fast? And he said, because I feel like if I fast, I can understand what children who don't, the children who don't eat, I can understand how they feel. And he said, even those children won't have a meal at night, whereas I'm at least going to have a nice meal that you're going to cook me. So, for him to understand that is really important for me, as opposed to right now, I don't need him to understand the rules. I need him to understand why he's doing it. And he has to have a reason why he's doing it. It's not always about because God said I have to do it like this. It's about why he's doing it. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel absolutely disgusting eating this after that conversation.
You're getting the bakewell.
They're so tasty. Nadiya Hussain, through mouthfuls of your delicious macaroons, I want to say it's been so lovely to meet you. And I am just another person who wants to give you a massive hug.
Thank you very much. You're a
Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the macaroons.